I was put into. It wasn't something I was, motivated to pursue. It was like something I did when if I look back, I mean, when you're 2, 3, you don't have a lot of knowledge, like you don't remember a lot. But all I can think about was like I had a fascination for cars, motor cars, Hot Wheel cars, all sort of cars. Like I used to be obsessed with cars, and I had this thing like I could literally visualize a car and how it works when ignite it and how the things work, how the piston works, and all those technicalities. So I always had the thing for.
You were around a lot of cars when you were growing up, and fascination for speed.
No, actually, both my parents were doctors. We didn't come from a motorsports background, but my dad, obviously, he was a motorsports enthusiast. So, but it wasn't like we would gather. I mean, he was fond of cars, but for me, all I can think about was like I used to love cars, and my dad used to buy me my parents used to buy me these dolls, like the way young girls like. But I never liked them. In fact, whenever we had like family or friends over, and I was play with the boys.
It was a natural connection to
cars. Exactly.
It's your calling. So when did you realize that it's more than a passion and it's a calling for you?
I think I realized it was a calling even before it actually became a calling, because I don't know where it started. I know my dad actually got me a toy car. It was my first experience in a car. It was a toy car, and I would just be like, I was crazy that day. I didn't sleep and eat. The whole day I was just like running around the house, driving it through the furniture, swirling it. So my dad actually did realize that I had an instinct for cars. So when I was 4, eventually 4.5, he got me custom-made go-kart.
Whoa.
So yeah, though I was born in India, I lived most of some part of my initial years abroad. So we were in a different country, and Middle East. So my dad actually, we had some place at the backyard of our house where we lived. So he created this small go-karting track. It was so tiny. He made all these patterns around. And I remember as a child, I would be in my go-kart and I was just like going around in that pattern area.
So that was your Disneyland, right?
Yeah, exactly. I would definitely say that. And I really enjoyed it. And eventually, as I grew older, I eventually grew out of that track also. So now I needed a bigger space. And my dad, that time, got me into the world of karting. So I got into the world of road tax and karting. And for me, and I remember, for me, it was like every weekend, I had the best memories with my father. And he would take me every weekend to the racetrack. He would pick up my, my racing kit, suit and everything, and I would just go and have my day. Best moments, like the weekends, and I was always waiting for the school to be over as a weekend, and I'll be there at a track. So this happened, and eventually I used to be the only girl driving with the boys there.
I was about to ask that how did it go with the family?
I mean, I was just a young girl, like 6-7 years old girl, and I used to compete with boys over there, small boys. So I used to always win. I was always on the podium, always on the pole. So for me, that time it wasn't like the competitive way. We don't have that thing, girls versus boys thing.
Yeah.
Like, it's not really. So I was doing it just purely based on passion.
Sport.
Yeah, the passion. I was just enjoying the kick it was giving me, the rush, adrenaline stuff, everything. So yeah, I mean that's how it was.
But as I understand, you come from a very traditional family.
Yeah.
So was it difficult for others to accept that this has become, other than the profession, the dentistry that you've done, this is what you also choose to do as an adult as well? And were there any hassles, any challenges there?
See,
how did you overcome?
Of course, it's a long story. I mean, for me, it wasn't just a one overnight thing. As I told you, that I started karting at a very young age. Eventually, I moved to single seaters and Formula racing. So this has been, but throughout this phase, when I was doing my karting, then we relocated back to India, and by the age of 9, I was able to drive road cars on my own. So I had memories of my father where he would take me to the school, and he was made me sit on the driver's seat and I'd be on the passenger seat. And this used to garner so much criticism, kind of that controversial for a lot of teachers and my peers. There'd be like, a 9-year-old girl driving to school with a father. That was considered to be a little outlawish. But it didn't stop my family. My dad knew that I used to drive, and by the 10, 11, I was already driving car on my own. I always had a connection with motorsports. I had a simulator at home and I used to do it all. And whenever we had our trips, so we would always go to a racetrack, probably have a good session on the track, me and my dad. And because when we relocated to India, we came to Jammu Kashmir. It was like the crown part of India, and there was no track even closest. Like it was like there was no track in the entire zone. So there was just two track, Gari and Madras racing circuit. So obviously I was slightly inclined also academically, since both my parents were doctors. So they saw motorsports as a form of a, what do you call it?
Like a hobby.
Like a hobby, exactly. Yeah. Like a hobby, like she likes it, so she'll do it. So
recreational.
Exactly, recreational. That's that. So eventually, what happened when I was 13? So I used to call it street art. So I was this really fantastic racing, like this person who used to pull these stunts. So my dad used to do donuts and drifting, and burnouts he used to do. So I learned it from him. It wasn't like I learned it, I just observed him, and I would do the same thing on my own. And I don't actually tell people to do. I discourage people from doing it because it could be very dangerous. I used to do those things without the seatbelt, without the helmet, just by looking at videos and seeing my father do it. So one of my, actually my mother's cousin got to know about this, and he reported it to my father. He was like, your daughter, we have seen her, and she's really, she's just 13, and she's all doing all these things on the track. I think you should stop her. I think I had a video made out of while I was drifting and performing that donut. And my dad actually got to know. It's like, I want to see what you're doing. So I told him, yeah, okay. So I took him with me to the racetrack, and he came with me, and I showed him everything what I did.
So was he proud? Did you get a scolding, or did you get a pat on the back?
No, my bat. It was it was a pat on the back. You know what? When I took my dad for that thing, so I was expecting, I showed him all the donuts and everything, and the burnout session I had, which just screwed my tires completely. So I thought my dad's going to be mad at me. It's like, wow, the pat thing. It's like, wow, today you proved you're my daughter. These are the things that I used to do, and I can see that reflection through you. So what I can tell you as a father is, like, you have this really rare talent. Not a lot of people in the world have. So it would be very foolish of you and very unfair of you to keep it to yourself. You should reach it out to the world and create an example. And I was just like 13 years old, and I was just like, okay, we can move to a place where I'll have a racetrack close by. You can continue with your education, and you can do racing. Yeah. And it's like, you shouldn't waste it over here, and it's not safe also. You should do these things, you should do it in a very professional way. You should pursue this professionally. So eventually, we were still in the talks of moving to a different place, like probably certain part of the world, country, or to Europe, where I could, have that kind of access. So that's when the tragedy hit. I lost him.
I was about to ask you that I know that listening to all this, you both, father-daughter bond itself is very special, and then finding a passion that both of you feel so strongly about. But I'm aware that I think he left you with some motivational words. How does it help you dealing with things today?
Now when I look back, when this happened, I was like a few days into my 14th birthday, just a few days before that, and that was a very dark phase of my life actually. I slipped into a very massive depression for the next 3 years, I think. I just stopped racing. Anything that would remind me of him would make me cry. So I took a break from everything, and I was just like, on my own. I think in the year I nearly spoke like 50 words. I was someone who had a very happy childhood, who was very chirpy, very full of energy and power, and all of a sudden I was like this sad child. So I had this really bad phase in my life. So that time mother actually played a very major role. So she said, you know what, I lost my husband and I don't want to lose you because I can see you slipping away. So if you really love your father, go make him proud. And immediately his last words to me were, continue racing, don't stop racing. Allah will help you. I said, I will be able to do it. And that day I made my plan, you know what, I'm going to pursue it professionally.
Today you've reached a milestone. You have represented India, you have done it for British Endurance Racing Championship, you have an international license. I'd say you've made him proud. I think there's a long way to go, but you've already established a lot. You're already a role model for a lot of girls. Not in motorsport, everywhere. If they have an organic connection to any passion, they know that they have to pursue it. And I am telling you, I have a 9-year-old daughter, so I don't know if you need to consider this, but I'm telling you, I really wanted her to come and meet you today. Then I went through your story, so let me tell you firsthand, you have an inspirational story.
Thank you.
Already. You have arrived. You have made your dad very proud, and we just can't wait to see what more you can do with your life.
Thank you so much.
All the blessings to you. I have a couple of more questions.
Sure.
So I'd really like to know, how did you juggle between a passionate motorsport racing part-time and a medical degree? How did you juggle between these two most demanding, physically and mentally demanding genres of interest?
No, actually, as a child, I always studied, I always enjoyed reading science. I always excelled in science. I'd get like really good marks, and science and English were my very strong subjects. So for me, obviously, I liked science. That's why I took science as my subject in 11th, 12th. But I was never really wanting to become a doctor because I'm someone, who's driven by passion. So I couldn't see myself doing a 9-to-5 desk job or like being committed to that kind of, because these kind of professions require a certain level of commitment, and I wouldn't do it just because I was able to make money out of it. So I wanted to do something that actually, could feed my soul, and I could find the escape that I was like, find a purpose in my life for that matters. So I remember I spoke to my mother. I said, I don't want to become a driver. I don't want to become a doctor. So I want to become a racing driver. And my mother said, this is more of a gamble given the prize, but I'm not going to stop you, because obviously you have this and you're very determined to do it. But the thing was that I needed my mother's assistance. Motorsports is very expensive. You need a lot of money, especially, starting my career, since I was starting everything off my own after like 4 years. So I had to buy the racing gears, and I had to get the racing coaching and everything. So she said, you study, you make it to med school, but it has to be a government degree. I mean, government
approved.
Seat. Yeah, government seat, so that you don't have to pay for your tuition fee in the college. So I think I just gave my 12th exams, and I was like one and a half month into, and we had the NEET exam. And in those 1.5 months, I studied like a crazy person. I didn't study because I wanted to become a doctor. No, I studied because I wanted to become a racer, because I knew that once I get into med school, Mama will give me that, assist me, financially, and I'll be able to pursue what I wanted to do. Eventually, the results came out. I did make it, and the second thing we did was like book the flights, and then I had my trainings in South. I had moved, took some training in Dubai, in Europe, and then that's like how I got into this. And eventually, there was a training program where I was discovered by Mr. Sanjay Sharma, Hardy uncle. So he's like a father figure to me. So he was impressed by my performance during the testing sessions, and he's offered to offer me a seat, a sponsor. They were sponsoring me. So JK Tire were my first sponsors. Had a very good time, really good races we had. And then I wanted to do touring cars, so I moved to MRF. So again, I had 2 years with MRF. And after the strings of this I was applicable for an international license for winning podiums, and also then I got my international license, and then a new era started. I went to England, and I was representing India at the British Endurance Championship. I was the first Indian in the championship, only Indian, and I was the only lady driver who was competing with men. So yeah, that was another chapter starting.
So many firsts for you.
Yeah,
and for Indians as well.
Yes.
I think you're also about to represent India in the GT races.
Yeah, now I'm like GT races. Formula has a lot of genres. Formula Motorsports has a lot of genres. So we've got like GT races, then we have Formula races, then we have prototypes. So these are the like three form, and of course drifting and all those things are also part of it. So I do primarily GT racing. I do enjoy Formula racing sometimes, and yeah, prototypes and other things.
So what's one thing you're looking forward to in G races?
In which races?
GD races. There are upcoming races.
Yeah, I do have upcoming races in Europe, Spain, London, Germany, so Dubai. So I'm gearing up for them, and let's hope I represent India successfully.
Of course, we wish you all the best.
Thank you.
How many